Okay, it's happening. I was not going to stream today, but we have gigantic, just enormous breaking news, which is that Donald Trump plans to, in signing the recent budget deal that gives him no money for the wall, but a little bit of money for some bollards on 55 miles of fencing. He is going to sign it to avert a government shutdown, which would have started, I believe it's tomorrow night at midnight. But he is also going to declare a national emergency in order to justify commandeering the money that he wants to build the wall. This is massive, massive news. We have to consider multiple elements here. We have to consider the legality of this. We have to consider what happens next and the court battles that are going to start, the political consequences, and always in the back is the use of these decisions to distract. I was thinking of a more nuanced word, but really it's to distract from the closing circle of criminality around Donald Trump, the latest of which is, of course, the news from today that the plea agreement for his campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, has been voided because of his persistent lying, even after signing that prosecution agreement. So we're going to be going through a whole bunch of stuff here. And I'm really glad that you're with me. I plan to stream for a while. I will open the phone lines as I often do during the streams if people want me to. If we get 10 new patrons, members, or YouTube channel members, information about that in the description. This is a live stream, so we can actually have a back and forth about what's going on. If you have questions for me, if you have comments you want me to read and react to, please use the dollar symbol at the bottom of the chat window, also known as Super Chat. We will put those up on the screen and I will address them and talk about them. And if you have questions, that's all great. Sign up for membership on our website. Couple of coupon codes available in the description. I'll say more about that later. Don't troll the chat. A lot of people got banned yesterday during the stream, unfortunately, because of trolling. And you can become a YouTube channel member using the join button down below. So let's get right into it. First and foremost, we have an article from the New York Times explaining what's going on. Let's take a look. President Trump plans to declare a national emergency so he can bypass Congress and build his long promised wall along the border, even as he signs a spending bill that does not fund it, the White House said Thursday. This was originally mentioned by Mitch McConnell and then immediately confirmed by the White House that, yes, this is the plan. The announcement of his decision came minutes before the Senate voted 83-16 to advance the spending package in anticipation of final passage on Thursday night by the House. So here's what happened, folks. It became clear that Republicans overwhelmingly were of the mindset of, we've got to pass this bill. We can't have another government shutdown. The last one was an absolute and total disaster for us. So Trump realized, or someone told him, as is often the case, that he's going to have a real problem politically if both Democrats and Republicans are completely on board in the House and Senate with a bill that would reopen the government with no real wall funding. It gives them this $1 billion for bollards on 55 miles. I mean, 55 miles is nothing, right? That he is going to suffer politically if he shuts down the government again, when both Democrats and Republicans are united about the fact that they need to avert another government shutdown. So the idea here is, okay, if I have to agree to this bill, this spending bill that doesn't give me money for the wall, what else can I do? And the answer, of course, is declare a national emergency and try to commandeer the funding for the wall. That's not going to be quite so easy, and we'll get to that momentarily. Mr. Trump's decision to sign it effectively ends a 2-month war of attrition between the president and Congress that, as we know, led to a 35-day government shutdown and facing another one. It could instigate a new constitutional clash over who controls the federal purse. Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying President Trump will sign the government funding bill. As he has stated before, he will also take other executive action, including a national emergency, to ensure we stop the national security and humanitarian crisis at the border. Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Democrats are reviewing our options to respond to that declaration, didn't rule out a legal challenge. The president is doing an end run around Congress. She raised the possibility that Trump was setting precedent for Democratic presidents to come, precisely what Republicans fear. You want to talk about a national emergency? Let's talk about today, reminding Mr. Trump about the anniversary of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. That's a national emergency. Why don't you declare that emergency, Mr. President? I wish you would. Okay. So, and then this is a key propaganda moment. The president is once again delivering on his promise to build the wall, protect the border, and secure our great country. So here's what we have. This is a mess. This is truly a mess that we are experiencing right now. Number one, the idea first we have to look at, is the wall going to be built? Even if Donald Trump declares a national emergency and it is legally upheld that by doing that, he will be allowed to commandeer money to build a wall across the entire US-Mexico border. That's the most optimistic scenario for Trump, okay? Give him everything. He gets to take money for the wall. Number one, where does that money come from? That's the first question, because it's got to come out of somewhere else. And it very likely is going to be from places that most Republicans aren't going to be pleased with. All right, that's number one. That's going to be a real question. Number two, if construction on a wall across the entire US-Mexico border started today, it is unlikely to be finished by the end of Donald Trump's presidency, even if he gets reelected. Engineers have looked at the wall. Every single one of the prototypes that was proposed for the wall, where they did, I don't remember if it was like 20 feet, a bunch of different vendors did like 20 feet of how they would build the wall, and they submitted very general estimates of what it would cost to do. Here's the problem with those estimates. I won't redo this entire thing because we have a lot to get to, and I did an entire segment on this. Number one, the prototypes were done nowhere near where the wall would actually be built in terms of terrain. So whatever cost there was for 20 feet multiplied by, what is it, 1,200 miles? I don't even remember how many miles it is total of border. Doesn't account for the fact that to actually build the wall across the entire US-Mexico border, you need to get both equipment and people to those places. None of that is accounted for in the cost of a 20-foot wide prototype. That's number one. Number two, the costs that are being cited from those estimates are now 2 years old. All of that stuff costs more, partially because of Donald Trump's own tariffs. And lastly, it would take years. There are engineers who estimate it could be a decade to build the entire thing. By that point, pieces of the wall that are built first would already require maintenance. None of that is priced in. Okay, so the wall as it was originally conceived is a fantasy. But let's get into the national emergency declaration. This is so early that we still don't know the legality of declaring a national emergency to build a wall on the southern border. We'll discuss crisis in a moment, okay? But let's take a step back from that and take this one piece at a time, as I like to do. In order to let's imagine that there is going to be a court challenge to this. You are going to need to demonstrate that there is actually a crisis, right? Because if you are going to say we need to declare a national emergency, which is normally done for very different things, which I'll get to momentarily, the Trump administration should, and we're trying to figure out what legally is going to be required, should have to prove that we have a crisis or national emergency. How do you do that with immigration when, number one, illegal border crossings have been declining for a decade? Okay. So right away, if it's a crisis now, it was a bigger crisis 2 years ago. Why didn't Trump declare the national emergency then? Why wasn't he trying to get the money for the wall then? Doesn't make any sense. Number two, net outflow of immigrants to Mexico rather than coming in from Mexico. Number three, drugs, most coming through ports of entry. The wall wouldn't do a damn thing about it. Number four, criminality. Undocumented immigrants and documented immigrants both commit crime in the United States at lower rates than American-born citizens. Why? It's obvious why. If you know you're here illegally, or you know that you're an immigrant, even though you're legal, you are still seen as an outsider in many communities, you are not going to do anything that will get you on the radar of law enforcement, which risks getting you deported. Okay? Obvious. So if indeed the Trump administration will have to prove in court that this situation warrants a national emergency by virtue of being a crisis, I don't know how you actually do it. And that is increasingly what early comments from legal scholars are suggesting, which is that if the Donald Trump administration has to prove in court that this is a crisis, they would be unable to do so in a way that any sensible judge would be convinced by, is probably the best way to say it. So nothing about this makes sense. And what I want to go to next, and I see that there are super chats coming in, and I see that there are new members signing up. It seems people do want me to open up the phone lines, which I'm glad to do. Let's first deal with the casual nature with which this national emergency is being declared. Let's see if I can zoom this in a little bit, get us a better view. This is from the Associated Press. President Donald Trump's plan to declare a national emergency to free up money for his border wall would be an extraordinary step, despite a statement that predecessors liberally used such power. It's a contentious move, likely to be legally challenged, and not something presidents routinely do, contrary to his rhetoric. Trump said, we already have national emergencies out there. President Obama, President Clinton, President Bush, they've declared many national. This is not unique. They've declared many national emergencies, many. As soon as Trump uses that phraseology, he doesn't know what he's talking about. The facts, the emergency action would be rare. The presidents he cites did not use emergency powers to pay for projects that Congress wouldn't support. No, in fact, it's usually the opposite. In fact, national emergencies are typically declared in order to fund priorities that have bipartisan support in many cases and would pass Congress. But because of the emergency status, this is a quicker way to get that money. So let's actually look at that. I happen to have here a list of national emergencies in the United States from Wikipedia, each sourced, of course. See if I can get the zoom reasonable for all of us. Maybe here is good. As of February 2019, 58 emergencies have been declared and 31 are still in effect, having been renewed each year by the president. Let's just skip all the way down to Barack Obama to see what's there. November 22nd, 2015. See, I apologize. The end is off the screen, but I'll tell you what it says. Imposed sanctions on 4 Burundi nationals: Minister of Public Security Alain Guillaume Bunyoni, National Police of Burundi Deputy Director, and Cyril Ndayirikukiye, in the wake of widespread unrest. Okay, bipartisan support. Obama, April 1, 2015. Intended to allow sanctions to be leveled on foreign individuals determined by the Department of the Treasury to have engaged in cybercrime or cyber terrorism, was in the works for 2 years. Let's look at Obama, April 3, 2014. Enabled economic sanctions to be placed due to the civil war in South Sudan, sanctions first imposed a month later. Let's look at George W. Bush, June 16, 2006. Imposed sanctions, including a travel ban on Alexander Lukashenko after Belarus's crackdown on peaceful protests against the recent presidential election and following similar sanctions by the European Union. A multi-country, multinational effort. The idea that because national emergencies exist, and there's this long list here that I'm scrolling through, it's no big deal to declare one, to pay for a pet project like the wall, of course influenced by, number one, the growing panic because Trump has so failed on this issue. He was never going to get Mexico to pay for it. Now he's not even able to get Congress to pay for it. So this is what he is now doing. The idea that it makes sense in that situation to do what was done by Clinton or Obama or George W. Bush or whoever is laughable. And ultimately, it may be a court that decides. Now, anytime we're talking about courts deciding when it's Donald Trump's presidency, we have to think back to the people, small minority, but there were people on the left who said, I don't care about the Supreme Court. I don't see any real difference between Trump and Hillary, or Hillary I just don't like, so I'm not going to vote, or I'm voting third party or whatever. This may ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court. And this makes the obvious importance of the Supreme Court even more noticeable. How long is that legal battle going to take? We don't know. We have no idea, but it could be a very, very long time. Let's see what's on people's minds about this in Super Chat and memberships. Let me. Oh, okay. So people are asking about the phones. I will take calls about this or anything else, but we're looking for 10 new members, patrons, or YouTube channel members. So far, we have one. Someone signed up with the name David Pakman, but it looks like it's Will Parker. Will Parker has signed up, and I really appreciate you signing up. Will, thank you very, very much. And we also have, okay, that's it. So we're 1 out of 10 so far. If you want to do something nice for me for my birthday and get a membership, which will get us to open the phone lines, go to davidpakman.com/membership and enter the coupon code SAVE35. I know that on screen it says vote soon 18. Enter the coupon code SAVE35 on the $60 per year membership. Select $60 a year, then enter the coupon code SAVE35 for my birthday. We are giving $35 discounts, which will drop a yearly membership to just $25. It's a really great way to send me a gift for my birthday. Maybe you don't care about that, and that's okay. But it's a great way to support the show. It'll get the phone lines opened, and it'll be a beautiful thing. Let's see what's on people's minds about this. William Ellman says, my dad, Steve Ellman, who's the executive of St. Charles, Missouri, once met Trump, and he confirmed that he indeed has very small hands. Yeah, I saw an article that argued that Donald Trump's hand size is being artificially enhanced via photo editing in some pictures of him. I didn't care enough to actually look into it, but I wonder if that's true. But there's no question the guy has small hands. Yeah, I don't know why it matters, but he does. Vintage Barbie sends a $1.99 super chat with no question or comment. Thank you. I appreciate it. Harvey with 2 R's sends a $5 super chat. Should Democrats just give Trump a photoshopped image of a large wall and say it's already built? I get that that's a joke. I actually suggested during the recent shutdown that if Republicans and Democrats really wanted to get government reopened, just go to Trump and say, we have a bill that will give you $5 billion for the wall. He's not going to read it. He doesn't read anything. The presidential daily briefings have been cut down to a single page, a bunch of images, and two or three bullet points. He probably would have signed it, and of course later there would be repercussions. But that's an idea that I mentioned as a possibility. Cypher sends a $5 super chat. They can declare a national emergency for the wall. That opens the door for Democrats to do the same for climate and healthcare. Yeah, that's an argument that's being made by a lot of people on the left, which is, okay, if the Trump administration feels that they can make the legal case for undocumented immigration being a crisis worthy of a national emergency such that they can just commandeer money without going through the normal appropriation process in the House of Representatives, next time there's a Democratic president, they can say, listen, here's the number of medical expense related bankruptcies. Here's the number of people that are spending over 30% of their yearly income on medical expenses. Here's what things cost compared to other countries. This is a national emergency, and we're commandeering the money to put in place Medicare for all or a Medicare for all opt-in or something like that. It's a risky move. It's a risky move. And I think, if I'm on the left, I still fight this now because whether or not, even if Trump is successful in doing this, that doesn't mean Republicans are just going to say, if a future Democratic president tries to do healthcare, Medicare for all via national emergency, it's not like if we let them have this, Republicans will stand by in 7 years when a president says, I'm declaring a national emergency and putting in place Medicare for all. They're not going to do it either way. So in that same sense, there's no upside to the left for laying down here. And we also just don't forget that a lot of this hijinks is probably related to the fact that the news in terms of criminal investigations into Trump wrongdoing, I mean, we're learning this weekend there's going to be an interview on 60 Minutes with former acting FBI director Andrew McCabe, where he will say there was a serious conversation about having Rod Rosenstein wear a wire when he talks to the president. There was a serious conversation at the Justice Department about whether we should try to rally the cabinet into removing Trump from the presidency via the 25th Amendment. These are disasters for any president to have to contend with, and we can't understate the desire to distract from every other disaster that is going on here. Okay, Terry James sends a $5 super chat. Should we give some form of reparations for Black Americans? Maybe tax cuts for Black owned businesses? Listen, I don't have any problem in principle with reparations. I think if the idea is Black owned businesses get tax cuts, what exactly does that mean? What exactly are you suggesting? For how long? How many generations? Who funds the tax cuts? Are they funded equally by all races or only by white people? As soon as you start doing this stuff, I think that you raise a lot of problematic questions. And I think that there are far less controversial means to help people who most need help as a result of historic oppression and discrimination that I might look at first that would be way cleaner. And I've talked about some of those on the show. Let's see. Tyler Frega has signed up for a membership at davidpakman.com/membership. That's 2 out of 10. Okay. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, the phone lines will open this evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. Once we get 10 new members, YouTube channel memberships count. Website memberships at davidpakman.com/membership count. You can use the coupon code SAVE35 to get a $60 membership for just $25. I encourage you to do that. And new patrons at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow also count. We're 2 out of 10. Okay. We're 20% of the way there. And I'm not afraid to do it. I will open the phone lines if we get to 10. BizWiz, is declaring a national emergency really just the swipe of a pen for the president? Can Congress do anything? Can Democrats take action to push back? This just broke. So what's going on now, BizWiz, is the legal scholars and lawyers representing the Democratic Party are looking at what challenges are available, what mechanisms for challenge are available. The ideal one would be that the Trump administration would have to prove in court that there is a crisis of immigration worthy of declaring a national emergency and commandeering money in a way that's outside the normal appropriations system. If that's the case, the Trump administration will have to show their work in court to say there's a national emergency. I believe that that would be very difficult to do. We don't yet know the full scope of what mechanisms are available to Democrats at this point in time, but we will probably by tomorrow. Ninjax X sends a $9.99 super chat. So Dave, here we are 2 years in. My first super chat to you was about Trump being a Russian puppet. You reserve judgment. Do you still reserve judgment, sir? No, I think at this point it's pretty clear that Donald Trump is manipulated and influenced by Russians, to say Russian oligarchs or the Russian government or whatever. We could do an all of the above probably. I don't know that I don't think Trump is an agent of Russia. I don't think there's been any evidence presented of that. I think that the guy is more, if anything, a de facto Russian asset. He's been entangled with Russians for so long. I don't believe that there is any reason to think that there was anything special about Trump as someone that Russians were trying to be in cahoots with 30 years ago. He was one of many Western businessmen that they thought it would be useful to start being entangled with. And as that grew over time, and as Donald Trump became a viable contender for the presidency, it was sort of the perfect storm. And I think that a lot of what went down not without Trump's knowledge, but without Trump's necessarily kind of evil complicity. It would be the way it went on, because the guy's a moron more than anything else, and he was just in too deep with Russians. Bomber Fox sends a $5 super chat. Do you still think the institutions will hold against Trump? What do you think should be done if they don't? I don't know which institutions you mean. I mean, Trump is in control of a lot of the institutions that are significant to the United States of America right now. So I don't know what you mean if they will hold. Do you mean, will democracy hold? Will voting systems hold? Will free and independent press hold? I think they probably will, because Trump's limited to at most another 6 years in total. But that would be despite his best intentions. Daniel Cosme sends a $5 super chat. David, what do you think of a luxury or commodity tax? Kyle Kolinsky from Secular Talk was talking about it and outrageously expensive cars that people buy. Yeah, you can. I mean, listen, we have this already. It's not really that big of a deal. So let me give you an example of something that's a sort of de facto luxury tax. And by the way, thank you to Lance Smith, who is today's third new member of the day. 7 to go, and I will open up the phone lines for people. There is in taxation, there's something called the mortgage interest deduction. What this means is that if you have a mortgage on a house, you might pay a few $1,000s a year in interest on that mortgage. When you make a mortgage payment, part of the money goes to principal, pays down what you owe. Part of the money is interest, which is the cost of the loan. That's how the bank makes money. When you get a mortgage that is for less than $750,000, you can deduct all of the mortgage interest that you pay. If you have a $500,000 mortgage and you pay $15,000 in interest, that entire $15,000 is tax deductible. It lowers the amount of income you pay tax on. If you have a mortgage for more than $750,000, you are limited in how much interest you can deduct. I believe the way it works is you can only deduct interest on the proportion of the mortgage that is under $750,000. That's a sort of luxury tax. If you have a mortgage for $1 million on a $2 million home, for example, you are in a position of privilege by merely being able to afford such a home, and thus you can't deduct all of the interest that you pay. You could do the same thing with a car, right? You could say that there is some limits, some tax. You could do it a lot of different ways on cars over a certain amount. And as the car depreciates over time, then that would phase out potentially. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do that, and I think that there are some mechanisms like that on very expensive yachts, aren't there? Maybe I think that's why a lot of people register their yachts in other countries. I know a couple people who have yachts, and everybody I know says I pay more by having it registered in the U.S., but I don't care because it's the right thing to do. It just doesn't seem right to say this is a Bahamian yacht, even though I'm American and I work in the U.S. Doesn't really make sense. So yeah, that's an interesting idea. Welcome to, who is the new member? Welcome to Justin Leviness. Justin Leviness is today's fourth new member of the evening. 4 out of 10, as the graphic at the bottom says. When we get to 10 new members, I will open up the phone lines. People can call in. We had a lot of good callers last night, and I would love to open up the phone lines again. We are 40% of the way there. 6 more members, patrons, or YouTube members, and I will get those phone lines opened up. Generic name says, can Will Barr impede the Mueller investigation? At this point, I may be naive, but I think that it's too late for Barr to impede the investigation. I think his move would be to limit the release of the results, the findings of the investigation. He was a little bit squirrely during his confirmation hearings about that. And that seems more likely to me than impeding the investigation itself, although the investigation goes very long still, and it may well do that. You may start seeing pressure on Barr to get in the way of the investigation. Environmental Coffee House says, with a $9.99 super chat, if this national emergency does get declared, and the White House says it's getting declared, it opens the door for a climate mobilization and will backfire on the Orange Man. This is so critical to our survival. Yeah, there was a similar super chat earlier. The thing about Republicans doing this now, or Trump doing this now, opening the door for a Democrat to do it with healthcare or the climate, is that, number one, either way, whatever legal mechanisms are available to get in the way, like whatever Democrats can do now to get in the way of Trump doing this for the wall, Republicans will be able to do later to get in the way of something for the environment, and they will, no matter what Democrats do right now. So if anybody thinks, oh, if Democrats just let Trump do this now, then Republicans won't get in the way when future Democratic presidents try to use a national emergency for climate action, they're going to get in the way no matter what. So you may be right, but I don't think it's going to make a difference in the end to how it works out. If the courts will have to decide, the courts are going to have to decide either way. You're not going to see either party say to the other, we did it, now you get to do it. It never works that way in American politics. Deakin UCLA says with a $10 super chat, the biggest of the evening, I've been liking Pete Buttigieg for president. What do you think of him and any plans on doing an interview with him? Would love to interview him. I don't know if we've reached out to him yet, but I gave producer Pat very specific instructions to reach out to every 2020 candidate. I like him. I don't know enough. I like his style, and I'm aware of some of his policies. I don't know enough about how he differs from the other candidates to say much more than that, but I hope to interview him on the program and think he's a really interesting candidate. Valerie Waters sends me $1.99 and says, I'm donating the other $58 to the wall. Happy birthday. Okay. I mean, if you're a wall builder, I don't know why you would donate anything to me, given that this program is espousing very different views. But if you feel like giving me $2, then thanks. Kind of a weird thing. Saridi Ahmed Yahia says sanctions on Venezuela actually started in 2017, and they're all like about medications and essential materials like medicine, vegetable oil, sugar, flour. Yeah, I've covered that. So for people who have said that the reason for Venezuela's economic problems is decades old American sanctions on Venezuela. Yeah, we put it up on the screen, the list of sanctions. And as you point out, they started very, very recently. And so anyone saying that problems in Venezuela from 2010 are because of American sanctions, you can make a lot of other arguments, but that one just is not borne out by the history books. Fool in the Rain, one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs, asks, do you think that these kinds of Trump tactics will be adopted by future Republican politicians? Absolutely. Donald Trump has set new standards. And by standards, I don't mean high, I mean low bars about what is acceptable in terms of discourse, in terms of the coarsening of political dialogue, in terms of what a presidential candidate can get away with and still become president. Absolutely. And I've been saying for a while, eventually Trump will be gone. Some of what he does can be undone relatively easily. Other things can't. So the damage that's done to the climate every day that Trump doesn't do something about it to fix the problem, that's much more difficult to undo than some of the other sort of meaningless and symbolic executive orders. But yes, one of the biggest problems with Trump is how he will embolden future Republicans to be just as bad or even worse. Okay. Vintage Barbie. How can Dems take the White House back? 2 words, voter turnout. That's it. I talked about this yesterday on the show with Bill Scher. I've been talking about this for a long time. Half the country doesn't vote. Yes, I want the most progressive possible candidate. I will support the most progressive possible candidate during the 2020 primary. But in the end, I have to do the same thing everybody else has to do, which is just go and vote. That's the path forward. There's really no other answer. Terry James says, don't modern conservatives essentially believe that the progress of the past 100 years was good, but now we've gone too far? I don't know what you mean by modern conservatives. I think moderate conservatives believe that a lot of the progress of the human race over the last 50 to 100 years is good, but that some things aren't. There is the sort of 1950s conservatism, which really does seem to be retrograde in more ways than you might be giving credit for, and they fantasize with going back to. It's not even about conserving at this point. What they want to conserve something we're way beyond, so it's really going backwards. It's regressing. It's the opposite of progress. Okay. I've got another new member to thank, Antoinette Ward. Antoinette Ward. That is 5 new members during today's stream. If people want me to open the phone lines, I will do it. But we just need 5 more members. And membership is really cheap. Membership is the primary way we fund the show. Membership gives you access to an extra show every single day called the bonus show. But more importantly, $6 a month, 60 for the year. This is pennies for every program that we put together. And if you apply the coupon code SAVE35 to the $60 a year membership, so on our website, you go to the membership page, you switch to the yearly tab, you hit the sign up button, and then on page 2, where it says coupon code, type in SAVE35, SAVE35. That's it. And that'll drop a $60 membership to only $25. There are 1,400 people watching right now. If just 1% of you, 14 people, take advantage of this membership special or not, just pay the full rate if it's affordable, we will be taking live calls before you know it. And that's, as we know, that's fun for everybody. Carlos Santana, a great guitarist, glad to have him on the stream. If the Dems do a legal challenge on the national emergency, would that put the wall on hold until it goes through the court, or can Trump start construction whenever? We don't know the answer. And it's possible while I've been streaming and talking about what's going on that we have some clarity on that. That is the question. Democrats are looking at every legal challenge possible, hopefully one that would prevent any wall building based on commandeered emergency funds to start until and if, only if, the Trump administration can prove in a court that there is actually a crisis, and not just a mild crisis, but a crisis so significant that declaring a national emergency is justified. And we don't know what the answer is to that. Hopefully we will learn about that soon. Ninjax X says, so Dave, I haven't heard any independents like yourself mention Marianne Williamson. Have you heard of her? Have you mentioned her? What do you think of her? Not only have I heard of Marianne Williamson, I have interviewed her on the program. I mentioned her once, and she is a pseudoscience woo person, and I'm just not into that. Let me see if I can pull up some info about her. But no, I'm not into pseudoscience at all, so she is not someone that I would be able to support. Let me see if I can pull up a little bit of information here, and we can look at it together. Where is the information I am looking for? Maybe I think there's a Rational Wiki, Marianne Williamson. Let's see if I can find that. No, I can't. Okay. In any case, I consider her basically like a BS artist. I mean, it's not for me. It's not for me. But if other people like her, by all means, have at it. BizWiz. There are many random websites telling people which political philosophy they align with via a test. I've tried a few and have had varying results. Should people be trusting these websites? I'm not so sure. I would be very skeptical of a lot of those websites. I did my I side with quiz, and the quiz, for example, said I was very aligned with Kirsten Gillibrand on the basis of socialism. And of course, I'm not a socialist and she's not a socialist. So I'm a little bit scared about some of these websites giving people just wrong information about what their own politics are. So I love those in that it would be great if people were matched with candidates based on their actual political views. I think that's great. It would separate us a little bit from just choosing someone who you think has a good personality or whatever. You answer questions about your political views, and then it says, here are the candidates you most align with. My results from the I side with test were weird. So I would be a little bit hesitant to say that's a great way to figure out who it is that you should support. But good that you're skeptical about it, because clearly you should be. Jackson says, would you consider debating Kyle Kulinski on Russian interference? He largely thinks it's nonsense. Also, Buttigieg is not a progressive. Look at his tweets about Medicare for all. Very reluctant, sad. I will look into that. I mean, debating Kyle Kulinski on Russian interference, it would mostly, I think, be a debate over how important we think the issue is. I don't know what he says about it because I don't watch anything. I don't know what anybody says on their shows, but it's hard for me to imagine that Kyle would deny, like that we would have disagreements as to what the facts are, like the Trump Tower meeting, indictments, whatever. We might disagree about what level of focus there should be from Democrats on it. Maybe, I don't even know. I'd have to know more about his position to know if there's even a debate in there. Saridi Ahmed Yahia says, would you be mad if I said Lars Ulrich is the best drummer in the world? I wouldn't be mad. I would assume you don't know that many drummers, probably, but no, I wouldn't be mad. And he's not a bad drummer. Just to say he's the best in the world seems a little bit far fetched. Michael Pond, can you add audio from these live streams into the members only podcast feed? You know, that's an interesting idea. I don't know if we can, but I like it. I like that idea. Why not, right? Let me make a note. I'm going to try. Listen, this is why you should be signing up for membership on our website. They have asked, Michael Pond has asked, and I am going to try to make things happen. Talk to Pat. I'm just making a note about live stream audio to, man, it's right. It's hard to write sentences with a Sharpie, to member feed. Yes. And as Michael Pond is pointing out, members have their own feed. Members get the entire daily show instead of these clips that we publish every 90 minutes on YouTube when we do a new show. Around 4 p.m. Eastern time, you've got an hour video that is the entire show for that day. No waiting around for clips. So please sign up. Please sign up, folks. That's me doing my Jeb Bush please clap. We're halfway to me opening the phone lines. If people want to open the phone lines, let's get 5 more members at davidpakman.com/membership. The coupon code ThisIs2020 will save you 40%. That will make a $6 a month membership $3.60. If you don't think that the entire body of work that we do is worth $3 a month, then that's sad. But then what are you doing here? Come on, let's make it happen. Okay, Pumpkin says, what do you think of the idea of mega coda? I have no idea what that is. Is it anti-Semitic? Why am I worried it's anti-Semitic? Mega coda. Oh, no, it's not. It's merging North and South Dakota into mega coda. I mean, that's just unification of the Dakotas, sort of like unification of the Koreas. I don't have a strong position about it. I don't know why I don't know why it's being advocated or why it's something that that I should want, but I'll look into it. Gormoroth says, if Trump uses majority or all of the emergency funds for the wall, what are the consequences if we have another epic natural disaster emergency likely due to climate change? That's exactly why this is so problematic, because either he's pulling funds designated for actual emergencies, or he figures out a way to get funds from the military is another question mark possibility that I read. It's all problematic, and I don't think he has an answer. And judging from the response to the Puerto Rican hurricanes, it doesn't really seem to be a high priority for Trump, to be perfectly honest. Slapchop57 says, do you think Rosenstein wore a wire? I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. We now have heard from Andrew McCabe that it was seriously discussed. We've never heard a flat out denial that it happened, and I wonder if it did. Hopefully someday we know. Art Flores says, who has more loyal supporters, David or Trump? Are you asking who has a higher number of loyal supporters, or whose supporters are more loyal? Listen, 60 million people voted for Trump, so I think that he definitely has a higher number of loyal supporters. Are they more loyal to Trump or to me? I would also say a lot of them are loyal to Trump. I don't have a cult of personality around me the way that Donald Trump does, for better or worse. Nick Angelos sends a $5 super chat. This is funding for a golf simulator for the studio. Yeah, that was our 4:30 Eastern time clip today. Donald Trump installing the golf simulator that they had at the White House that was in there from President Obama wasn't good enough for Trump, so he installed a new one. I can tell you today, Nick, I will not install a golf simulator at the studio. Jackson says, speaking of I side with, it says Yang supports overthrowing Assad and the TPP. Their source is merely that Democrats support those things. I'm skeptical that he does. Yeah, I think I side with is a real problem. It's a real problem. James Buccino says, David, your thoughts on Neil Peart as a drummer. Did I pronounce that right? I used to always say Neil Peart, and then someone told me, David, come on, it's Neil Peart. I love Neil Peart, and I love everything that he does. I love Rush. Rush is awesome. I think Rush is a hugely underrated band, and Neil Peart is fantastic. Let me say thank you to Cy Hargis, who is the 6th out of 10 new members during today's live stream. 6 out of 10. Very, very exciting. And Schlumpf has just signed up as a YouTube channel member, which is 7. So 7 out of 10. 3 more new members, YouTube members, or patrons, and the phone lines will be open. And I look forward to hearing from people. Awesome Gaming. Why do insurance companies deny life-saving drugs like yesterday they won't cover my new diabetic meter? Well, listen, I don't know anything about your particular circumstances, so I couldn't tell you why your insurance company denied you that, and I'm sorry that they did. But listen, I mean, the macro of this health insurance industrial complex and the amount of power that is relegated de facto to employers and for-profit insurance companies to make decisions about people's health is immoral, and it should be ended immediately. And I've been advocating for that for a very, very long time. Let me say thanks to Kevin Wallace. Kevin is today's 8th new member. The target, it's a very modest target. We're looking for 10 new members during the stream, and then the phone lines will open. We are 8/10 of the way there, or 80% is another way to say it. Kevin Wallace is number 8. And if we get 2 more new members, we will open up the phone lines at 617-830-4750. I am very, very close to opening up the phone lines. Let's see if I can even show you what's going on here. No, I really can't. I was going to show you my phone interface, but I won't. There's really no good way to show it to you. Melanie Bricker says, I think Melanie's also a member, if I recall correctly. Melanie Bricker says, what do you think about Beto O'Rourke running for president? I hope you're asking me, what do I think about the possibility that he will run, right? Did Beto announce, and I missed it? Let me just double check just so I make sure I know what I'm talking about. Beto O'Rourke. He met with Chuck Schumer to talk about running, but he hasn't announced yet. Okay, what do I think about the possibility of him running? I like Beto O'Rourke, although I think I'm to his left, and I am concerned about running someone whose most recent achievement politically was losing. I mean, okay, he did really well in Texas against an incumbent senator, but I don't know the answer. I'm not asking rhetorically. I'm genuinely asking, how should we interpret the idea of running someone who lost the last attempt to win something? Okay, Stephen Brent and Will Raines have both signed up for memberships at davidpakman.com/membership. Thank you. Really appreciate you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and open the phone lines, and I stick to my word. I am completely upfront with people. If I say I will open the phone lines, I open the phone lines. Keep the signups coming at davidpakman.com/membership. You can now call in at 617-830-4750. No speakerphone, no Bluetooth, please. Just your regular phone or a plug-in set of headphones. Nothing else. Otherwise, everybody gets very, very upset. I will go to the phone lines momentarily. People can start queuing up, and I see that people already are. I think I had a couple of other super chats here as people call in. Jackson says, PSA, new rules for Dem debates, 1% in polls and 60K donors. Andrew Yang is already at 1%. Let's get him to 60K donors, Yang 2020. Jackson, is that official or is that an idea? I haven't seen that the DNC put out those requirements, but that's very interesting. I would be interested in finding out more about that. Okay, let me get set up here to take phone calls. What's the best way for me to do this? All right, I think we're ready. 617-830-4750. We are taking phone calls. We are going first to the caller from the 647 area code. 647, what's on your mind?
Hi, David. This is Sebastian from Canada.
Hey, Sebastian.
I have to confess I am on a speakerphone, but that's because my face always turns the phone off. I hope that's all right.
Okay, we're going to try to deal with it. Your level's very, very low, but speak up.
Okay, here, let me try and fix it.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so I left a voice message earlier today. I know that you don't generally watch anything on YouTube, but
right.
I was wondering if you saw Andrew Yang on the Joe Rogan show was just completely blanked on foreign policy.
I didn't see that.
Like,
No. Like what happened? Like what question was he blank on?
well, Joe Rogan asked him what he would do about Russia meddling in the American elections, and he just said, I would issue them an ultimatum, and if they violated it, I would come down really hard on them. And I was just thinking, like, what does that even mean?
Oh dear. That's not
And
great. I mean, I'm going by what you're saying, but that doesn't sound great.
yeah, but since you are in touch with him, I don't know. I think this is an emergency. I would really like to see him win, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I've been, I've said that right now, of the people that are running, whose platforms I've reviewed in detail, Elizabeth Warren and Andrew Yang are at the top of my list. And it sort of occurred to me, like, maybe I should try to get involved with the Yang campaign if he would be interested at this early stage, sort of informally, like maybe just, I don't know, who am I, right? I don't know if he needs my help. And I know he's doing great and he's getting a whole bunch of press and stuff, but I do think I'd be able to work with him to really kind of like firm up and be ready for some of the questions he's going to be asked. But maybe he would consider my offer offensive, I don't know.
right. Okay, I also had one more question. Did you see that there's going to be a snap election in Spain? And I know you follow Spanish politics, so I'm just wondering your thoughts on the situation.
I didn't see that. I really don't follow Spanish politics that closely. My stepmom is from Spain, but from a region that's not embroiled in controversy. So I am not aware of what's going on, but I will check it out.
All right, thanks for taking my call.
Okay, great. Great to hear from you. I'll take another call in a moment. Jackson adds, these are the official rules. According to Yang, he has 15,000 donors. Glad he went on Rogan. He's getting more and more support. Amazing. Rock Lee says, please cover the George Gage story. Hashtag innocent, hashtag never Kamala. Okay, I'll check that out. Let's go to our caller from the 509 area code. Who's 509?
Yeah, David, this is Blake.
Hey, Blake.
This is actually my area code is Eastern Washington, but I'm Portland, Oregon. So
All right, that's acceptable.
we've actually had some disagreements about Maduro on Facebook or on YouTube on some of your videos, but I just wanted to actually talk about this possibility of Trump declaring a national emergency. And just kind of the general state of our nation. The first thing I thought when I saw the title of this live stream and looked up the article today about how they're openly admitting that they're willing to pursue that. When does it become time for the American people to be the American people? Be we the people, take the rights into our own hands, so to say.
A couple of years ago, probably. I mean, I think the time for that has long been going on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, but obviously that hasn't happened.
Right.
And it just seems like, especially with the election of Trump and everything that's happened in his presidency thus far, I mean, when do we say enough is enough? And hey,
I don't know that we do.
If it
I mean,
means
here's the
civil
problem.
war,
yeah, here's the problem.
which I don't want it to, but what if it does?
Trump has well, no. I mean, we're going to have an election before we have a civil war, and
yeah, absolutely.
Trump's followers are by and large not going to abandon him. And we talked to a cognitive neuroscientist this week on the program about why. We know from the writing of people like Jonathan Haidt about why it's not going to happen. Okay, so this is going to have to happen without Trump's followers, and that just means people have to vote. And I know, Bill Scher was sort of not. He said, "Well, listen." When I brought this up, he said everybody thinks or wants to have the trick to increase turnout so that you win on turnout. Usually, people aren't able to do it. So then the question is, how do you get people to actually go and vote? But it's just about getting people to vote who don't normally vote by getting them to understand the gravity of the situation.
Absolutely, yeah. And I agree. It really is such a small minority of people that think the way that Trump does and that buy into what he believes. But they are vocal and they get their message out there, even to people who maybe aren't quite as gone, I would say, as they are. And it's causing a lot of problems and it's causing a lot of pain and suffering. And I feel like it's hard to know what the answer is and when we need to actually take action beyond what we normally do with elections and voting and whatnot.
I think the time is now. And I'm going to do everything I can to get people to take that action. I appreciate the call. Great to hear from you. James Buccino says via Super Chat, if Ilhan Omar theoretically ran in 2020, would you think about voting for her at all, or is she automatically a no vote to you? No, no one's automatically a no vote, but there are already other people running in 2020 who I would choose over her, both Elizabeth Warren and Andrew Yang. So if she ran in 2020, she would already not be first on my list. So yeah, that's that. Let me say thank you to Beth Leslie and Evelyn O'Hara. Thank you to both of you signing up as new members at davidpakman.com/membership. Let's go next to what area code looks good? What's an area code? It's 347, I think might be Massachusetts. Who's 347?
Hello?
That's you, yeah.
Hi. It's actually New York, but I'm currently in Massachusetts for
Oh, all
college.
right.
So,
Well, that's good.
yeah, yeah. I was just wondering. Michael Moore recently said that if they could lower the age to run for president to 30, that Ocasio-Cortez would make a great candidate. And I know that's something that's very unlikely to happen, but I was wondering, would you support something like that? Do you think she's a viable candidate, somebody who could kind of push this progressive agenda that's really kind of sweeping the Democratic Party?
Well, on personality and on enthusiasm, she would garner support from people that maybe aren't regularly voting, and there could actually be like a turnout case to be made for her. I think she is, I think she would struggle in any kind of debate setting. I think that that would be a challenge. And I think that she still lacks a lot of basic knowledge about many issues that would have to be dealt with in a candidacy for president. But a few years down the line, I think that that could change as she becomes more experienced. But right now, if she ran in 2020, I think that she would be severely outmatched in terms of experience by people who are not super to her right, and thus she probably would not end up doing that well on a debate stage with a lot of the other people already running.
Yeah, I do agree with you. And I do think this kind of progressive sweep is kind of going to meet its match with Donald Trump. I know he made a lot of comments about socialists and stuff during the State of the Union. Do you think that's going to be a hard sell for a lot of voters?
Is which part going to be a hard sell?
Just kind of the progressive, like Medicare for all, increased tax rates, something that, like you talk about, not a lot of candidates have bought into yet, like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. And I'm wondering if you think that's going to really take hold and kind of reach a lot of these super delegates that somebody like Bernie Sanders would need.
The super delegates are less relevant in 2020 than they were in 2016 because of some changes that were made. So I think it's less about that and more about who inspires people to actually get out and vote, because particularly in early Democratic primaries, the turnout is low enough that one candidate mobilizing an additional 30,000 people can get them in a significantly better position. So I think it's more about that than appealing to super delegates, at least at the early stage.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Okay. Yep. Thanks for the call. Great to hear from you. Let's try the 978 area code. Caller from 978. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This me?
Yes, it is. And I'm hearing music, and it sounds like you're on speakerphone.
Okay, let me fix that. My apologies.
All right. Seems like we
my name is
fixed both
Freddie.
issues.
My name is Freddie. I'm from the Lawrence area, and to sort of give you a bit of a story, I got myself into a bit of a political debate with several of my friends a couple weeks ago. We were talking about certain issues like the wage gap, euthanasia, abortions, etc. And to make a bit of a long story short, I made a bit of a fool of myself as I wasn't able to assert my ideas in a constructive manner. And I was wondering if you have any sort of tips on how to engage in a political debate with anyone without getting into a dispute or even causing a physical or verbal altercation.
Wait, so so you mentioned two things. You said you weren't able to express yourself the way you would have liked or in a productive manner, but then you mentioned a physical and altercation. Was there a physical altercation?
No, but there was a verbal altercation.
Okay, and what happened? People started yelling over each other?
People just started yelling. I don't really want to go into a lot of details about it.
Okay, were the people that were yelling insults, or were they yelling arguments about politics?
Yeah, they were yelling insults. They were calling names, and Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. It wasn't pretty.
Well, usually when that happens, it's not just one person's doing, so it's usually unlikely that one person would be able to prevent it. But as far as
Yeah.
what you could do, it's good to. Here's one idea. Whenever you are in these conversations, imagine, even if it's not true, that the other person isn't saying crazy shit because they
Mhm.
think you're a bad person or because they want to hurt people or whatever, but they just don't have all the information that you have. And imagine that if only they had the right information, they would come to the same conclusion you would. Obviously, that's not literally true, but the idea is if you think about it that way, it sort of sets you up to approach the conversation in a slightly different way. And then sometimes instead of escalating, you get more into questions like, how did you come to that conclusion? What would change your mind? What do you think the people who have a different view than you are trying to achieve? So, like, that can be an effective disarming question. Imagine that there's a big debate about taxes, for example, and you're arguing with someone who wants no taxes and says taxes are theft. You could say to them, what do you think the people that disagree with you and that think taxes on the rich, for example, should be higher, why do you think they support that? And a few people would
Mm.
say because they are just mad at rich people and they want to steal their money. But most people would say, well, I think they probably believe that it's better than for the economy if that's what we do. And then you can say, oh, why might they think that? Why might people think that taxing the rich is better for the economy? And you're starting to get them in the mindset of someone who shares your perspective without attacking them and without necessarily putting them on the defensive. So I think that, I don't know that there's necessarily a specific answer in there, but that type of thing I find to be much more effective and prevents the escalations that you're describing.
Okay. Another question I have is I'm a high school student, so I've been noticing as of recently that there's been a relative increase in the amount of middle school or high school students that are vaping or juuling, as they like to refer to it. And I want to know sort of what is your consensus on vaping, and how could the state or federal government realistically address the vaping epidemic to
I
reduce
have
the
no
number of high
idea. I
schoolers?
don't know what to think about it. I haven't looked at whether, so, the idea of vaping, the pitch is that it's vapor and not smoke, and therefore it's not bad or as bad for your lungs. I don't know if that's true or not, and I'm just not really informed enough to say.
Okay. All right. But thank you anyways, David. Hope you have a good evening.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate the call. Great to hear from you. We have dozens of people holding. Let's go. It's so hard to pick an area code. Let's try 781. Caller from the 781 area code. What's going on?
That me?
That is you.
Cool. All right. So, David, would you like to see a Bruins game with me sometime this spring?
I have no idea. I don't know who you are, and only if you have front row seats.
Okay. All right. Well, I usually don't sit in the front row, so
Oh, you don't? I've
unfortunately, I
never
don't
been
think
to a
it's going to
Bruins
happen,
game,
man.
actually. I don't really go to, you know what? I'm so annoyed now with crowds at sporting events and music concerts that I have almost completely stopped going unless like I know someone in the band or that works with the team and can get like some kind of more comfortable situation because the crowds are just such a pain in the ass. And like I'm going to DC in a couple of weeks, and a friend of mine works for the Washington Wizards, and I'm going to go to my first pro basketball game in years because I'm just annoyed by the crowds and the rush and the racket and the entire thing. I think I'm just getting old. That might be what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it sounds like to me.
Yep, I think so.
I can have problems with crowds at sometimes, but anyway, my real question for you
Okay.
is it's a little bit of a situation I have to present. My father is probably the most right-wing person I know.
I'm
And,
sorry.
we live outside Boston. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you fine. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we live outside Boston, super liberal area, but he is like beyond right wing, just crazy.
Yep.
And my parents are divorced.
Okay.
He was pretty abusive when I was little. and through my development years. And so recently, I applied for like an honor society in my college,
Yep.
and I was rejected. And when I told him about it, he said that it's just the college is attacking the white man. They don't want white men in the honor society. Blah blah blah. All the crazy garbage crap. And I was telling him, no, it was my fault. Last semester I didn't work as hard as I probably should have. And I was trying to kind of get him to kind of connect with me and talk with me because he did well in school at his age when he was younger, and I kind of want to learn from him. But he won't accept the fact that it's my doing that did it. He will not shy away from the idea that my college is trying to oppress me because of my whiteness. How would you handle a situation like this? What could I say to him to persuade him to see things from a non-delusional point of view?
I mean, listen, here's the difficulty of it, and it's especially difficult with people in our family, friends, loved ones. It doesn't sound like he reasoned his way into the position that he currently has. So I don't know how you can use reason to get him out of it. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, if it were true that, imagine that 99% of the people who did get in are also white, it would sort of invalidate the idea that you're not in because you're white, right? So if it just so happened that you had something like that you could present, maybe that would get his attention. But I don't know. People who don't use reason to get into a position are unlikely to be reasoned out of it.
Yeah. Frankly, my mother has said some things very similar about him in regards to reason. But yeah, so the people who...
Hello? Uh-oh. Looks like we lost him. All right. Well, listen, we lost you. Very sorry to hear about that situation. It sounds, it really sounds not good. We've got a bunch of people from the 512 area code, 12345. I'm going to pick up on one of the 512 people. Where's 512 that so many people are calling in from there?
Hello, is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
That's me. Okay, 512 would be, that's Austin, man.
Austin, Texas.
Austin,
okay.
Texas.
That explains it. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just sort of wondering how you thought. So I'm a junior in high school, and me and some of my friends are going to be able to vote in the 2020 election.
Some of my friends and I.
Thank you.
I'm screwing around, but that's true.
Yeah. So a lot of Democrats and liberals and stuff talk like Gen Z people, like the fact that they're going to be voting is somehow going to help the Democrats. But I was wondering if you thought it was possible that there might be a lot of conservative young people who vote for the first time in the next election.
That's the argument a lot of right-wingers are making. There are a bunch of right-wingers who tweet stuff that are saying this is the most conservative new generation of voters in a very, very long time. I've not seen any good data suggesting that. All the data I'm seeing is still that every successively younger generation is more to the left on the issues than the older generations. But if someone wants to present me information that says what you're saying, what you're asking about, which is there's tons of new young conservatives that are going to be 18, 19, 20 years old at the time of the next presidential election, I'm willing to see it. It's not been presented to me yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen any data to back it up either, but I will say that, there's these conservative online platforms like PragerU and kind of, I guess you'd say the intellectual dark web and stuff like that. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find a white teenage male right now who is not familiar on some level with people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. That's been my experience. It's very pervasive.
So at the national level, I don't know that Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson have that high name recognition. I mean, I know a lot of people because of my sister who are between 15 and 20. I would be shocked if 15% of them knew who Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson were. I mean, maybe, once if you just sub-select from the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, yes, that number would go up. But I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I have to think about that.
I guess it'll just, we'll have to see in the next election.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that.
Okay, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Let's see. Who else do we have here? All right, let's see. By the way, everybody else from 512 hung up. It seems like they assumed that was the only Austin, Texas guy getting on. I would have gone to somebody else. Let's go to 513. The 513 area code is next. Where's 513 located?
Hey.
Hey, that's you.
Hello? Oh,
Sounded like
I
a
was,
third person said hello in the background. That was weird.
well, I was thinking about this rather desperate move on Trump's part to get funding for his wall.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just kind of wondering what's going to be the tipping point to get this fascist out of the White House.
I hope that we've already experienced it and that the guy is going to lose in 2020. I don't know. Like, maybe we're past the tipping point. Maybe we're not there yet. Whatever it is, it's not going to be a tipping point because Trumpists finally realize they need to abandon Trump. The tipping point is going to be something happens that gets people to realize they've got to go out and vote even if they don't normally vote in 2020. And I don't know if we're past that tipping point or not. I'm scared that we're not because, I mean, listen, Trump continues to have an approval in the high 30s into 40, and you can win an election with 26% approval because half the country doesn't vote. So I don't think we're past the tipping point. I don't know that we ever will know if we are, and it's going to come down to people voting. That's it.
Yeah, probably. And I was thinking about, to mention Trump supporters, how insane the QAnon conspiracy is. Because, all of the conspiracy theories I see, involve powerful people, and they're, not trying to cover for powerful people. But QAnon is, the first conspiracy theory I've seen that actually tries to protect the most powerful person in the United States.
Mm. Okay, yeah, I don't know much about QAnon, but that's I really liked your first question. I'm going to let you go because I've got a lot of people holding here. QAnon is not a big thing for me. Okay, let's go to the 443 area code. Who's there at 443?
Hello, my name is Court, and I'm calling you from Maryland.
Great. What's going on?
Well, Dave, I'm a long-time listener and a first-time caller.
Thank you.
And I heard some things that you said about Venezuela, and I appreciate your commentary on Mr. Maduro and your commentary on Mr. Guaido. However, I would like to ask your opinion of what you think American involvement in the region will do to the people of Venezuela, given the history of American involvement in Central America and South America, coming off the late 19th century, where most of it has just been racist exploitation of resources, mainly agricultural resources, that leave the people destitute and poor. And then when they become upset with the circumstance and try to rise up, we end up with El Salvador or Nicaragua or Honduras.
I think American involvement will be terrible. I think it will only be negative, and I've said that a lot. I don't want the U.S. to get involved. And again, as you're pointing out, looking at history tells us that when the U.S. gets involved in Latin America, it's almost exclusively disastrous.
That's my assessment too, and I feel like the disingenuous argument with people who say that America stepping in to, I mean, I understand Maduro has a lot of corruption in this government, and this is what I've heard. I don't know if this is true because it could be so much misinformation, but I'm not going to defend Maduro because I don't follow Maduro, and I don't know what actually is going on there. But I just wanted the opinion of someone. I know you're from Argentina, and your opinion, I think, is a little more valid.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm against U.S. involvement, but I think Maduro's a disaster. I'm against all authoritarian strongmen leaders. So I'm against Maduro. I don't like Erdogan. I don't like Bashar al-Assad. I don't, the full list of them.
Do you know anything about Guaido?
I do, yeah. I do, but you understand that Guaido not being perfect doesn't mean Maduro's any better, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm not condemning either one. Like
Okay.
I said, I've heard about the corruption in Maduro's government, but I don't follow Venezuelan politics as close as I follow American politics.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's
I
not
just
just
wanted to
corruption. I
know
mean,
if
it's the fact
maybe
that
we
it's
could do something
it's not
about
just
it, but
corruption.
I don't.
It's the authoritarian, it's thinly veiled populism covering up extreme authoritarianism and the sort of taking apart of just the fundamental institutions of democracy and their ability to operate fairly and independently. Okay, thank you for the call. I'm going to have to wrap there. I'm out of time. I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to do. Thanks to everybody who joined me. I will stream again. Thanks to all of the new members. Thanks to everybody. It's really been a pleasure having you on the stream today.